Well, I was sleeping 10 minutes ago.
Sleeping 10 minutes ago. Oh. So what I should have done was when I sent you the message, it should have gone ding 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 ding.
Yes, yes. I forgot to set my alarm.
Ah. Okay.
And I normally wake up on my own anyway, but not this time.
I just been reading some of these stories, and hey, we got some clashes on our stories today. So Campion and DiMarco clash at Welland City Council meeting number 1. Basically, Mayor Frank Campion is clashing with Councillor Tony DiMarco from Ward 4 in relation to something that was in the minutes. Can you believe this? In the minutes relating to the minutes of the April 9th council meeting, because they remember it differently.
Yeah, but it's already recorded, and I don't know if DiMarco is just trying to be a malcontent here. He's I don't know. He's just kind of looking for a fight, and I'm not so sure it's going to do anybody any good. Now the whole thing is like the council refused to take a report, which meant that report on a development, basically. I don't know. It's been a couple of days since I've read it. So
yeah,
they refused.
They refused to take a report that was related to a local development, which is kind of odd, because you'd think, well, any report that's coming about future developments, that's part of the basic remit of what the city's supposed to do.
Yeah, but there's something.
We'll pause it there.
Special about this particular report, isn't it?
I said, we'll pause it there. We'll take a commercial break while Dave's coughing, and we'll get back. No, yeah, Dave.
Yeah, I got this nasty leftover from COVID, and I'm not even too sure that I can't possibly be contagious anymore because of how far it's long it is. But I really can't take that chance. I can't go see my mother. I can't go to meetings because I keep coughing and I keep coming up positive on the tests. Although after a while the tests really aren't that important. They say that it's just the symptoms. Once the symptoms are gone, don't worry about it. I can't get rid of this symptom.
Yeah, it's the cough that's a bad symptom, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, well, back to Welland. Basically, this is relating to a local firm that's seeking approval for from the council for 4 new high-rise buildings and a set of townhouses on Niagara Street. The land was previously occupied through 8 lots, which have now been consolidated into a single lot. And the proposal could mean as many as 1,197 new housing units, or new units. And the biggest issue is that 3 of the buildings the developer wants to build were 25 stories in height, which would have required the city to change the height density requirements for their that are in their zoning rules, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And many local residents are concerned about the size of these proposed buildings, and the staff report was presented to April 9th to provide councillors with further information about the proposal, but they voted 6-5 against receiving that report. And what it was basically stated is it doesn't mean that proposal won't keep going forward. It simply meant that they wouldn't receive the report rather than rejecting the proposal outright. And that is the cause of the friction between DiMarco and the mayor.
Yes, because DiMarco says, well, how can we go ahead if everybody refused the report? refused the report. But whether that was the intention of council or not, the real problem is not the report, is whether or not they're going to go ahead with it. If they refuse the report, it doesn't say they refuse the building.
That's at the nub of exactly what it is. And it sounds to me like Councillor DiMarco understood that the rejection of the report was rejection of the development, whereas the mayor did not have the same impression. He basically meant that, according to the mayor, the rejection of the report was simply we didn't have to go through this report at this time, but it didn't have any impact upon the procedure of this application. And that should have really been made clear to the councillors before they voted on whatever, on the proposal at hand.
Well, the proposal is going to go ahead because the council did not disapprove that. They obviously had approved it earlier, and now because of a lot of citizens are quite angry about it, turning down the report would mean a couple different things. Turning down the report may be an indication that you do not approve the building, but you have to go ahead and make sure that comes up. It says it is disapproved, but also turning down the report means you're not willing to learn what the effects of that building would be.
And now I don't know whether I've got no opinion about that building because I have no knowledge at all on the development. It's the process that is of concern to me.
Well, it's another one of these where you're jamming in a lot of people in a small area, and the residents are concerned about it's too much of a concentration of people in that place, and of course, it means that the height bylaw has to be changed. But in this article, it has not referred to any other councillor, which it should have. Right now, it only is talking about DiMarco and Campion, the mayor and DiMarco, and the fights they have. It hasn't spilled over and asked the other councillors what they think. Do the other councillors believe that by turning down the report, they also turned down the building and now have to redress that? So you only have the two participants in this, which of course sounds like a good story about two guys slinging back and forth, but there's a whole other council there. And why haven't they done that? Why haven't they gone to the council?
Yeah,
the rest of the people in the council and ask their opinion.
And it may be that DiMarco, what DiMarco understands about that vote is different to what Campion understands about that vote, and I get it. That's the problem when you talk about something. Unless you get absolute clarity upon what you're voting for, you actually may be voting for something that you are not sure, that isn't true.
Yes. I don't know. And this is the minutes of the April 9th meeting were approved despite DiMarco's interruptions and concerns.
Yeah.
The minutes are meant to reflect what actually happened at the council meeting. The particular minutes. Now, I don't understand why either, too. And there's things here that are left on like, I mean, Jay Goldberg is the guy that wrote it, and he's the director at the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Now, but he leaves this thing hanging in the air, and if Jay's listening, and I'm sure he is, to Talking Niagara, that he's left us with an idea that two guys are disputing, and wonders why, and so we are left with why did the council turn down the report? What was the council's idea returning down the report? There is no explanation of why the council turned down the report.
Yeah.
And what the council thinks that means. And the rest of the council are involved here. What do the rest of the council believe? Are they going, are they against or for the, or do they just think the report is superfluous? And what business does a council have of turning down a report on a development? Why? Do you want to stick your head in the sand on this, or is they think it's superfluous and they don't need the information?
That's actually my biggest question of all of this, because it doesn't matter what the report, so it doesn't matter what the development is, whether you're for it or against it. That's entirely separate from receiving a report about it. Receiving a report is purely a question of the council actually taking that report for future consideration. Rejecting that report, I think, almost is irresponsible, because, you know, as I say, you're not declaring at this stage whether you support the development or oppose to the development. You're basically just taking a report on it.
Yeah, and turning it down, which really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Is it a protest? Is it whatever? And Jay, unfortunately, has just left us hanging there. Now, he does say that the Niagara Street the Niagara Street development is in Ward 4, and that's DiMarco's ward.
Yeah.
They have a ward system there. And of course, DiMarco is going to be particularly concerned about what's happening in his ward.
Of course he
Nevertheless, where is the voices of the other? That could resolve this pretty darn quick. You know, just by talking to a couple other counselors, or bringing up what they may have said about the report in council. But you know, it's like it's a serial here. Jay's got to write Article 2 to sort that out. You know,
I agree with that, because actually, what is the rest of the game? You know, okay. Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Goldberg, for bringing this up, putting this on our plate and giving us something to think about. Now, can we have part 2 of the installation of this? And what does everybody else think about? And I'd also be concerned to actually know what the report contains. Obviously, something like Niagara Independent couldn't actually publish the report. They could publish a link to it, but what the report contains may well be vital.
Yeah, and I think the citizens of Welland were pretty interested in it. I think the citizens of Welland would like to really know why their councilors turned down a report, because by doing something that implies that there is a rejection of the development, and yet nobody's done that. And Mayor Campion rightly says there's been no rejection of the development, and the development will then carry on. But
let's be honest, to develop a 25 floor development in Welland is going to change the Welland skyline. Wherever you sit in Welland, it's going to change the Welland city skyline.
Well, I don't know. The biggest thing in Welland before that may have been the bridge, but
yeah, exactly. You know, that's exactly it. The biggest thing in Welland is the bridge, right?
Yes. Well, Welland comes into the modern world, but we find that this is going to be a continuous thing. Basically, they are pushing for high density housing. That's not going to change.
I don't deny that. Yeah. And this might be an area that would be right for higher density, developments. And again, the question would be: is it right for a 25 floor, tower block? and that's a separate question entirely.
Well,
I don't have enough knowledge to actually, personally, my gut feeling is to say anything above 10 floors in a place like Welland is ridiculous. But I don't have enough knowledge about those bylaws and how, and how its effect is and what this proposal is.
Well, Jay Goldberg has left us with a mystery.
Yeah.
He is DiMarco. DiMarco feels that the rejection of the report is tantamount of rejection of the development, and it's in his area. However, Jay has not consulted any of their counselor, and which leaves us with no answers. Is it or is it not tantamount to rejection? Does that what the other counselors think about it? Are they or are they not against the development? White Cushman has come on by saying Welland has been hammering through development on contaminated properties like Niagara Falls. Height restrictions are more important than contamination and making people ill. Yes, Welland has a lot of contaminated land, including the Union Carbide property, which it had planned to make a huge residential area. Have they cleaned it up properly enough? That's the thing that's important there. And there are a lot of contaminations from the industries that once were there.
Yeah, and again,
what's that all?
Yeah, and again, I would understand why Mike would be flagging that particular issue.
Yeah.
Right? And you see, what I would say is that when it comes to issues like this, it's important that we actually understand what the issue relates to. When I see the city council meetings, on the Tuesdays they're on, I usually look at those developments. And the vast majority of the ones we have in Niagara Falls are actually, non-problematic, it has to be said, right? I am concerned grossly over the amount of new developments we are getting on the McLeod Road corridor. And I'm thinking, well, at some point, that means we're probably going to have about 4 or 5 maybe new sets of lights along there, a lot of additional congestion, particularly out west of the QEW.
Yes.
Right. And that is a concern that we have, particularly. And I say that I raise that as a concern because I've seen 4 or 5 of these go through where they've got, we expect traffic to rise by 1.9%. And at peak times by 3.6%. So we don't see, therefore, that there's any need for new traffic lights or new traffic controls on McLeod Road. And of course, then the next development comes along, has very similar figures, but they're not cumulative figures for cumulative developments. They're just measuring their development against the current existing traffic that exists on McLeod Road.
Well, McLeod Road is going to be a problem.
Yeah.
It's got the shopping centers. It's got the McBain Center on it. It's got schools up farther. It's got Boys and Girls Club up there. It's got all kind, and it's already got too many lights on it, and plus access to the highway right there. And like I said, it's got a plaza on both sides of the highway there. What are you going to do? I think.
Well, and actually,
and plus they're going to put up some more housing there.
Yep. Well,
and
exactly.
Even more concentration of road. So I don't know where they're getting their traffic studies from.
Yeah,
basically, but are they looking at them properly or not? I'm not sure.
And how many people on a Saturday and Sunday are going to be going, hey, we're going to Costco? Great. Now, hey, we're going straight across the highway to to Walmart.
Yeah. Yeah.
or vice versa.
Yeah. And nothing like going to the high end places.
All right. Okay.
They got imitation Tiffany stuff at Walmart now, I think.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on. Vigorous civilian oversight is seen as an essential component of democracy, yet another spat between military police and the feds is developing right now over exactly that. Military Complaints Commission is dealing with an increase in the complaints about military police and even reports its ability to exercise effective oversight has been badly eroded. They basically got an extra $250,000 increase to its $5.2 million budget. And they said this is the first time they've had a budgetary increase for that organization since 2013. And they are basically shouting that it's going to be facing the financial breaking point right now. And that's the cause. That's the cause of concern because this is the Military Police Complaints Commission. So, and yes, I agree that civilian oversight, which is what the Military Police Complaints Commission is all about, is an absolute need.
Well, the title says resist, refuse, obstruct. The disturbing reports of how the military police are defying oversight. But then if you read that there are a lot of that the military police have just rejected a lot of non-binding recommendations. So there's been a lot of recommendations that are non-binding from the civilian group, and they just don't adopt them. Well, and I can understand that because the civilians usually don't know what the heck the police do. If the police feel that these non-binding recommendations are recommendations that will get in their way from doing their job, they're going to ignore them.
Absolutely. It's like me doing a report on how Dave can better do Dave's job. Right? If I've never worked in Dave's job and my entire life has been writing reports on other people's jobs, how do I possibly know what it's like to do Dave's job?
Yeah, and it says here, basically it says Ottawa has neglected the funding and mandate of the commission, and the military police seem determined to frustrate the watchdog's ability to do its job. Who says? Like it makes that statement, but it says that the article, whoever's writing this article has made that determination. Based on what? Is that what the commission opinion is? Is it the opinion of the government, or is it the opinion of the journalist? It doesn't tell you where that is. It just says that. And I wish they would stay away from comments like that. They should say the commission has stated that Ottawa has neglected the funding of, but it just says that as a statement of truth.
Yeah, and this article comes from the Star editorial board, and as you know, the Star actually pretty much supports our government.
Well, the Red Star is normally called because it's farther left. But there you have it. The opinion here, the opinion of this person says Ottawa has neglected. Well, this is a journalist. Well, you're you know what? You're not. If you're an investigative journalist, then you lay out the proof of it before you make a comment like that. I hate comments like that in journalism because as you read along, the person who's reading it feels that you have credibility, and once they believe that you have credibility and they read something like that, but don't think any further. Like, well, who says that? The journalist says that, but who is that a quote of? It's not a quote at all.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's the journalist actually writing their own opinion about this, and that's an interesting question because should journalists be writing their own opinion? I don't doubt and I absolutely agree that they must have their own opinions about things, and there's a time and place for writing an opinion. And actually, an editorial piece is normally that place, and it does say it's an opinion article, it's based upon editorial. But when we get it in the review, of course, you don't quite see it that way necessarily.
The journalist has made the determination, and now that particular 2 sentences, Ottawa has neglected the funding and mandate of the commission, and the military police seem determined to frustrate the watchdog's ability to do his job. Seems okay. Then there is a quote that says, "These unfortunate barriers dilute the will of Parliament in setting up a strong oversight system for the police and must be addressed," the annual report says. That is important. What the journalist said prior to that is not, because the journalist is expressing opinion. And no way is the journalist an expert on the military police or the government oversight of it. That is just bad journalism. It's a bad opinion.
Well, that's what I was saying. One of the biggest problems you have here is the civilian oversight organization. It's like me commenting upon how Dave Wheeler can do his job better. When I'm just a professional looking at improving people's ability to do their jobs. I don't understand why what the process is that Dave goes through to do his job. Until I understand what that process is, right? I don't know why. I don't know why he pauses for a second and puts a mark on the board and then continues on. Right.
See,
that mark on the board is all important because you've just put down, let's say, the tolerance levels that are permitted on this particular piece of work.
This is the commission, which reviews and investigating complaints about the military police and investigates complaints of interference by armed forces members in the military police, cites 200 or 2 big hurdles in performing the commission. First is the funding. So basically what this is the commission says, we need more money. Yeah. We've got a we need another $250,000 increase. This is the organization got a $250,000 increase to annual $5.2 million budget. And the first hike since 2013, prompting it to warn that it will soon face financial breaking point. Basically, what it's just an organization that say we need more money, and any organization that needs more money from the government may overstate their case. Why isn't that put there? Yeah. Did this journalist, when they're looking at the opinion of it, did it talk to the military police at all about their opinion? No, it didn't. It took the one side of it that the civilian oversight is underfunded and that the military is actually doing exactly what they say they are, the complaints against it. So you have a commission that needs more money from the feds. We need much more money. We can't do our job. And look at all the bad things the military police are doing. And yet it hasn't gone to the military police and said, well, what's your opinion on this?
Yeah.
I when we do the show over and over and over again, I begin to spot stuff like that in articles that we normally take for granted. And I start seeing big holes in it. Like anybody can write anything and sound good. And in this particular case, the opinion of this, first of all, they should state their opinion and why they think so and then they look inside the military police. What is the abuses? What have they done? And then you look into the commission that is supposed to be an oversight, civilian oversight on that, see what their opinion is, see what they have done, and then come to a conclusion. But this isn't. Mike Cushman says, should it not say, in my opinion, before they make their flawed statements? Yes, indeed. But they have to base their opinion on on something that is not handed to them on a silver platter. The commission says this is why we need more oversight. This is why we need more money. And here it is. But they haven't gone to the military police and said, well, what's your opinion of that? And what is your position? And it really sounds good, but it may be, and there may be something of substance in it or behind it, but you can't tell that by this article.
Oh yeah. All right. I'm going to move on to another article, which also kind of is an utter crazy one from my viewpoint. Federal government cancelled an Ajax, Ontario woman's Canadian citizenship because of an error, in Canadian immigration made more than 30 years ago, forcing her to pay hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to bid to get her citizenship back. And she basically lives in Canada. She's Canadian. What happened is she was born in Jamaica. She came to Canada when she was young, and her mother came to Canada to ask about her citizenship and what she should do to actually ensure that her daughter can come to Canada and be a full citizen. And she was told, no, your daughter's already a citizen. Don't worry about it.
Well, that's what she says, but is that really the case?
Again, that's a good question. Again, that's an excellent question. I'm just putting the case of what was stated in this article about how, about the history. And obviously that's one person's opinion versus another, versus the immigration department who is now views it something else. But why was the baby let in at the time? This is a question that bothers me.
Well, the baby, of course, has to be let in with the parent.
Yeah.
So the parent comes, and the child is born in Jamaica, so it has a Jamaican citizenship. So it's a child that comes in with the parent. Of course, the child doesn't know that it has to establish itself as a citizen, and that's up to the parent. I have a feeling that the parents made a mistake, that it really is the parent's problem. What I have a problem with, however, is this person's been living in Canada for 30 years, obviously no real other life.
Yes.
And lives in Canada.
Well, that's what
of all the things that the Canadian immigration has to do, they're picking on a person that's been living here for 30 years and making them go through formality of technically establishing their citizenship. When you have this country is full of criminals that have snuck into the country and all other things, and they're wasting their time on this.
Yeah, exactly. There's a whole heap of, this is a woman of the clearest and best answer would, the best result would have been, hey, hey lady, I'm sorry, we fucked up on your citizenship. Not that you would have known about it. We fucked up on your citizenship when you were a baby. But everything's okay. We're not going to revoke it. Can we make sure that we get you to sign this piece of paper that will ensure that we're going to sort the situation out?
Yes, and give us a ton of money for it too.
Essentially, that is all that was needed, was some form of corrective paperwork to be put in place that granted her a citizenship. As it stands right now, revoking her citizenship essentially could mean that if she's working, that job is in jeopardy, and a whole heap of other things.
Yeah. However, there was a special exception in this particular case because the immigration people says there's been a mistake, and they can and so she's now put in a particular classification there's probably a ton of these happen over the years. As you can imagine, how many immigrants have come into the country dragging their kids along and not being savvy enough to do everything exactly how you should have to do it to get their kids as citizens. If and so there's probably there's probably a categorizing for a person like that. And
well, basically,
my big thing here is obviously the woman's lived here almost all her life. She came up with her mother. I don't think there's anything, and it says the mother was, if I'm not mistaken, the mother was a Canadian citizen.
Yeah,
which makes it kind of weird that they're giving her the business about her citizenship.
Yeah.
When her mom was a citizen, and so somebody could have probably just said, you know what, there's a technicality here we're going to have to fix. Let's just fix that. It's pretty obvious, but they have to go through this sort of Byzantine bureaucracy to get anything done. Can you imagine the thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that are being wasted on this case, where there are criminals of a high order strolling about?
Absolutely, and that's what bothers me.
Including that arms dealer who was from Jamaica and has been on bail, skipped bail 3 times.
Yeah, and that's exactly what bothers. That's exactly what bothers me. This is a lady who's married, right, and she has children. I don't know how many, and it's not that relevant. She's a member. You know, she's a member of our community, and I'm assuming that she's got a job. You know, and even if she doesn't have a job, she's as a mother, she's actually a valuable member of our community and should be recognized as such. And for them to have done this because of some technical difficulty in the past, right, just seems odd to me. Very odd.
Yes. And it's kind of an interesting article because of the technicalities that have come up, but it's also irritating to me to see how much money this person is going to have to come up with, according to this article, have to come up with a bunch more money to become a real citizen after living here 30 years from a child. Obviously, she didn't know that she was not a Canadian citizen. And then and then you have this guy, this Jamaican, that Kamar, his last name was. He is a guns dealer that was arrested and come up for bail and skipped bail 3 times. And he was a Jamaican. So how come they haven't caught him, thrown him in jail, and then deported him?
Yeah.
No, they go after some poor lady that's like on a little technicality. Someone should have knocked on her door and said, look, here, there's something wrong with your citizenship. If you sign right here, we'll fix it. That's it.
That is it. Exactly that. That's exactly all that needed to happen, that they suddenly realized there was a snafu in the paperwork somewhere down the line, and they signed here, or a mother signed here or something, and we'll give us 3 months and we'll have it sorted for you.
Yeah, instead of costing the government $1,000 and her $1,000, and her nothing, it's going to cost her a bunch of money, and it's cost us a lot of money to track her down.
Yeah.
You know, I'm serious. Like, and where's the MPs on this one too? Her MP should be standing up and saying, looking at her situation, determining, looking into it, like, because this article doesn't tell us everything. Like, she might be the head of a drug ring in Toronto. Who knows? But likely not.
Somehow I doubt that, but yeah, fair question.
So what an MP or even the journalist should do is just kind of look into who the person is. Are they just an ordinary citizen that kind of got overlooked, and just fix it. Here, take this rubber stamp, fix it, boom, done.
Yeah, done. Exactly.
But what they want to do is leave a gun dealer from this lady's ancestry's from Jamaica. But what they want to do is another guy whose ancestry's from Jamaica is a gun dealer and a dangerous criminal. They're not tracking him down, are they?
Yeah.
Right. He's skipped bail 3 times, which tells us a lot about our immigration thing. They're chasing this law-abiding citizen for a technicality, and how come they can't find the criminals who are out there?
Yeah.
Those should be prioritized.
Absolutely. Okay. I was surprised at you with this next article, by the way. Polyamorous relationships are on the rise, but the law is still catching up. Will the law ever catch up? That's a big question, because in fact, actually, a marriage, of course, is seen as between 2 people, not between multiple people.
Yeah, but if you read this, a little bit more carefully, the polyamorous relationships they're talking about is in the 2 LGBTQI, whatever the alphabet is that they use. That is mostly due to those people in the 2 LGBT. Now, it doesn't even narrow that down, which is a problem for me in this article. Here's another article. See, I'm beginning to learn how to read these with more effect. Now, it says that the 2 SL, they keep changing the numbers. And
2 whatever.
LGBTQ plus advocacy organization, that's where most of the polygamy is happening. But I'm wondering, there used to be, among gay men, polygamy used to be a big deal. Are they talking about gay men here? Are they talking about queers? Are they talking about trans? They've grouped them all in together. What aspect of the 2SLGBTQ plus community are the polygamous ones? It doesn't define that. It just says in that group. And that is a huge, vast group. And lesbians and gays do not like to be part of the mixed into that in many ways. They don't like to be included in that. Particularly lesbians don't like that, because they get, their identity gets washed out too quickly. So that's part of it. So you group a whole group of people, this 2 SLGBTQ plus, all these people you group all together, and then you assign this polygamous attribute to them. Well, maybe yes and maybe no, but certainly not the whole group. So that's one part of this I don't particularly like. And when it's written up, it sounds as if the polygamy is happening more in conventional relationships, as the title says. But as you read it, it's less and less really of the conventional heterosexuals. And it does say that among heterosexuals, this polygamy is much less of an issue. That heterosexual couples still lean towards single partners.
Yeah, and actually, the funny thing is, I was having a discussion related to this, and with some people at work, and so some people say, well, heterosexual people would actually have a problem with people who are bisexual, and we were just talking about bisexual, and I actually asked the question, was that because is that a jealousy factor, because in fact actually the bisexual person doesn't consider themselves limited to one individual, or is it the fact that because they are not involved in a monogamous relationship, because they're breaking that monogamy, that's part of the problem why monogamous couples, whether they are gay, whether they're gay, lesbian, or straight, have problems with it?
Well, there's a saying, "Buy now, gay later," In other words, the people who are bisexual as they're younger, as they get a little older, they end up becoming more of a single sex, same sex person, particularly if you're a young woman or something like that, and you happen to be very attractive.
Yeah.
You may dabble with men and women, but as you grow a little older, the men are less interested in you, and so you end up being just a more or less a lesbian. So the bi now, gay later thing is a thing. Also, the complaints among gay people about bisexuals are that they usually are just basically gay people who dabble, who because of convention go for the opposite sex.
That may or may not be true. I'm not going to, I'm not going to deny what you say. But that's an interesting take upon it. I don't know.
Not my take. It's what I've heard expressed by.
I didn't say it was yours. I'm just saying I know that you're repeating what you've heard other people say, and I get that. And that's actually one of, well, they're also talking about, despite the growing popularity, there's a data gap on polyamorous relationships because they're not included in the census. So we don't know how many there are. We don't know the nature of those relationships. And in fact, actually, given that they don't hold any legal status right now, it's probably very difficult to build any knowledge about those kind of relationships, people in those relationships.
Well, they describe them as usually they have an anchor person, so that's their main person that they deal with, and it shows a picture of what looks like to be a middle-aged woman who's had a relationship with 4 different people, and then it does distinguish between the open marriage thing too.
Yeah,
that they're not really including open marriage, which is a different thing altogether. Whereas you do have a marriage, you do have a partner that you are mostly committed to, but then dabble in sexual dalliances, and your partner does as well, which would always make me nervous. Now, you think, well, what's the big deal? Well, the social convention, the reason why we are almost every society is monogamous is because of children and the attribute father and mother of those children. Another important thing about monogamous relationships and usually the social angst about multiple partners is disease. It's very, very clear early on that disease is spread by sexual contact, and that comes right from the common cold to sexually transmitted diseases like syphilis, gonorrhea, chlamydia, and so on. So that is in our basic society, our laws, and our culture. That's why we have we turn a mean eye towards multiple sex relationships because of those things. Now, those things do not seem to be too important, but I do counsel that what happened to the gay community back in the 80s, that AIDS ripped right through them and killed a lot of people because of sexual promiscuity. And I think the same thing could happen here. When you have polygamous relationships now it seems to be mostly in that 2SL LGBTQ community, but I think that's part of the objection that will keep it as a fringe group.
Well, it is unlikely. Okay, so there's statistics here that saying open marriages are acceptable to a third of US adults, right? But again, isn't it could be argued that having an open marriage is at least one way of keeping keeping a marriage alive when you have a straying partner?
I suppose so. I know of at least one or two couples that had open relationships. I'm not so sure that it worked out for them. Yeah,
I'm not so sure they last other than a few more years anyway.
Yeah, but each to their own. I would be very uncomfortable in a situation like that. And I don't know if it's just my cultural preference, but I would be very, very uncomfortable in that.
And arguably it is your cultural preference, and it's the way that it's about the relationships that you've had in the past.
Now, Muslims are allowed to have 4 wives.
Let's correct that. Muslim men are allowed to have 4 wives. Muslim women are not allowed to have 4 husbands.
Yeah. Yes, that's quite right. So, and that can be put back to, at different times, the Greek societies have permitted polygamy too, and that was because they lost so many men during the war that in order for the women to have a stable relationship, they would have to share whatever men's were left over. And I think that was the case too in the Muslim world, because they were constantly at war. The men were off constantly fighting, and there was less men around. So how do you establish a relationship for a woman that was left over when 20% of your men are getting killed? Maybe even more. Young men.
That's an interesting way of looking at it, because in fact, actually, that does explain why some of those kind of situations are, because you have to refill the population. If your ancient population of ancient Greece was 1 million people, and you suddenly lost 200,000 men, now you have to replace those 200,000 men again.
Yeah, and also in certain indigenous groups in North America, we're told that a visitor into the village was allowed to have sex with any woman that wanted to have sex with him. And this was a way for them to diversify their genetic genes.
It makes it absolutely, it brings a new person into the gene pool, or new genes in the gene pool. Yeah.
And we're taught some Inuit, when a stranger comes in or travels into, then you offer your wife to them, because the idea that whatever child may come out of that is going to be yours, and your tribe or your village needs another person, and the genetic diversity they bring is also welcome. Now, I haven't really checked up on any of those before, but read all about those at different times. I don't know how true.
I've done some checking on it. It certainly existed as a thing, as did in many of North American societies. They were split into 2 halves of their tribal units, and they're basically, so men on one half of the tribe could have sex with any woman on the other half of the tribe, but they couldn't have sex with women on their own half of the tribe.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever. Everybody has their own arrangements here now, but this, I'm not so sure. I think this is a step away from the normal family that we normally consider. When you have multiple relationships and you may have an anchor or not, what it makes it very clear is those women women in these relationships really do not want to settle down and have children, and because it's going to get in their way to have children and to be involved in a social system and a sexual system that like this, children are going to be a burden. They're going to be an obstacle. The family unit. I think the family unit is the basis of our society, and that's the most important thing.
Well, I can also imagine
dad, kids,
I can also imagine the complaints about the person at 42 and hey, we're going to take them to the landlord and tenant board because there's always different people out there. There's we don't know what's going on. It's bad for our community because of this polyamorous relationship that happens at number 42.
Well, it could happen, and it's none of our business. I'm just saying that, and to trace it down. Now, the legalities of these things is part of what this article is talking about, and perhaps you can.
And as I said at the beginning, we're not going to change our marriage laws anytime soon.
Yes, but the fact is, if you die, let's say, where's your money going to go? Where's your will?
Yeah.
Is it going to go to these 4 different people if you haven't left one? Each one having a claim to being your partner. You know, you've got 4 different people, some of different sexes, saying they have a claim to your property. When you're establishing your pension plan and your health care benefits at work, who is covered? You can't cover all 4 of these people. Do we have to change the law to say that your healthcare system, that you have 4 partners and they should all be there? If a Muslim comes into the country and he has 4 wives, all we say is you have 1 wife and that's it. That's all you can allowed in this country.
One wife and 3 concubines. Yeah.
What
they has 1 wife and 3 concubines.
Yes, but can he put them all on his?
No, he can't. He only has 1 wife. That's the only way that we recognize it. The first wife is his wife. The others just travel along. They probably wouldn't even, if he was migrating to Canada, his wives probably wouldn't get status.
And that is definite. But there's this pressure now on for all these different attributes. Now it does say that heterosexuals do not maybe wander from their partner sexually here and there, but normally they do not involve themselves in multi-partner stuff as a way of life. They might have a threesome one day but then they're back to their wife.
And as I said at the very beginning, where those people, for those people that are in a single partner relationship, whether that is male female, or female, often actually don't understand these kind of polyamorous type relationships because it's a threat to that stability.
Yeah, but it's also a good way of not being committal financially or any other way. But in the end, I think this is a very small problem. And it says in the United States, and I don't like it says, a third of U.S. citizens says open marriage are acceptable. Not by them, somebody else, basically. It doesn't.
Yeah, it's okay for somebody else to be in that relationship, and that actually is part and parcel of that, right?
Now it breaks that down. That was all adults, but straight adults, 55% find it unacceptable. 16% are without an opinion, and only 30 or 29% say that it's okay. But it's okay for somebody else. That's the whole thing. But in a lesbian, gay, or bisexual, they, of course, have a different idea. But they haven't broken that down to gay men and gay women, which they should have. And this is the point I keep harping on. They're grouping these people together. Lesbians are not the same as gay men and are not the same as bisexual. A straight man is a straight man. That's pretty well defined. But lesbian, gay, and bisexual, to have a category for all 3 of them, they should actually have a category for 1 lesbian, 2 gay men, and 3 bisexual.
Because in fact, you might, and I'm not stating figures here, you might in the let's say lesbian category find that it's unacceptable might well be 80%, and acceptable might well be, let's say, 6 or 7%, whereas in the gay category it might be the other way around, that unacceptable is 5% and acceptable is 90%.
Yes, because we know if we had believed the statistics we've had for many years now, we find that lesbian relationships are usually more monogamous, that they are more steady and more committed to each other sexually. Lesbian relationships are normally more once established are more monogamous. Gay men, particularly young gay men, are more likely to be multi-partnered, and that's what got them. And that's what was a problem with the gay community with the AIDS thing. They were very sexually active among many different men, and that's why AIDS took off like it did. And and so, if you were to ask a lesbian the same question, do you find it acceptable, unacceptable, within their own lesbian community, what would they say? A gay man and a lesbian would have much different opinions, because
absolutely
they're a whole different animal.
Yeah, exactly. A whole different viewpoint entirely. And those figures that I was quoting wasn't because they exist. I was just trying to say how within that same subgroup you could have an entirely different viewpoint. And the bisexual, of course, could be 100% think it was acceptable.
You never know. And that bisexual, if whether the bisexual was a woman bisexual or man bisexual,
that's another
then would be another the category at all. So
exactly.
When you see a stat like this, it really isn't very revealing. It tells you that all adults, 51% of them say that's acceptable, but straight, that is a category, but lesbian, gay, or bisexual is 3 different categories, actually 4. Because the bisexual could be a male or a female. So there's 4 categories that could be broken up.
And even with bisexual, let's say bisexual man, could you subdivide that into another group? Is a bisexual man, there's 2 groupings there. One group of bisexual men that have a primary preference for men, and the other group of bisexual men that have a primary preference for women.
I suppose so, but for basic stats, that you're cutting hairs a little bit too much there, I think.
Possibly, yeah.
For basic,
but you know what I'm saying about how this could be a lot more different. In any case, those statistics on open marriages have got nothing to do with polyamorous relationships.
Yes. In any case, I think we should before we go, we should just mention that Joe Biden has finally shown a bit of a spine.
Yeah, that was an article we didn't get to.
Yeah, which is probably more important than all this other stuff that we were talking about today. Joe Biden is actually, as for current purposes, Joe Biden has actually turned down weapons for Israel. I don't know how that's going to translate because they have huge stockpiles of weapons, but this is a signal to Israel that the United States will not put up with their BS when it comes to Rafah. The United States has asked and asked and asked many times for more open borders, to get more supplies in. The Israelis have flipped them the bird steady, have ignored them, and said they're going to prosecute the war the way they want to. They don't care what the United States has to say about it. And it's their business. Just give me the weapons and shut up. And that's what Joe Biden has been doing. He's been giving them weapons over and over and over again, and expressing his concern about the deaths of citizens. And it's all come out very, very empty because nothing's being done. But the United States is slowly in very small ways starting to make their will felt. It has.
Let's go. We'll come back to that.
Refused to give refused to give weapons to the West Bank battalions, and now it's refusing to give more weapons to Israel. And we'll talk about that more tomorrow. But
Yeah, we'll come back.
But the reason why I wanted to mention it, because I always say, much ado, or without further ado, I bid you do pray for peace. Well, here, the tip of the wedge, maybe of peace, maybe being tapped in.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and